Actually, wait. Should I just tell her forget it? Because I can just turn the camera on here.
Yeah, I have it set up right now where it's sharing your screen with them.
Yeah, and then if I turn the camera on, they can see me.
Yeah.
And they can hear me too. Guys, can you hear me? I can just click that off, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. So, hey, we wanted to get this started. The format of this is going to be a little bit different because it's a book club, so we want it to be a discussion and not a lecture, but I will start off by talking about the book. But to start, a little housekeeping. This is being recorded. It's on Zoom and it is being recorded, so just remember that it's being recorded. Can everyone hear me on the Zoom? If you chat in, Lynn will be monitoring the chat. And for those of you who'd like to participate in the discussion who are joining us via Zoom, please chat and Lynn will read your question to the group. Great. So welcome. Thank you, everybody. This is one of the monthly events that we are holding as part of the Community of Practice. There we go. And it's we chose a book. We thought we would talk about some books that are interesting to all of us who are in project management, change management, and process improvement. I just want to talk about Business Excellence Community of Practice for a moment. This is a community of practice that's actually comprised of 3 different groups of practitioners. The first are people who are practitioners in change management. The second is practitioners of project management. And the third group are people who are practitioners of Lean Six Sigma methodologies. And of course, we have a lot of people who are practitioners of all 3 of those. So we thought we would put them under one umbrella, and that being business excellence. If you'd like to learn about some of the, I have a feeling everybody's on the listserv, but if you'd like to keep in touch and learn about the things that we do, please join the listserv. You can visit our website there, and at the bottom, join the mailing list. We also have a pretty active board that we post on, a calendar where it's not only events that we put on, but other events that would be interesting to project managers or practitioners in Lean Six Sigma and change management. And it's open to members of the community, so they can also post themselves. We host monthly events. Our goal is to host monthly events and then a couple of large events every year, right, Lynn? Yeah. Like Process Palooza, which was hosted back in November. And if you want any more information on the types of activities we do, please don't hesitate to contact anybody on the steering committee that's listed there. This entire presentation is already available online on that website as well. Let's talk about radical candor. So I am a huge, huge fan of Kim Scott. I think I'm a swim fan. That means like a stalker of her. If you read the book, she's worked at Google, Apple, recruited by Twitter. She's just a phenomenal person. And what I like about Kim Scott is that she's learned from all of her experiences. Not that she's done these incredible things, but that she's learned from so many of them. So to get to the basis of what Kim's talking about, this is the radical candor quadrant. And so her theory is that, and again, I don't want this to be a lecture, I want it to be a book club, but stand up. There are 2 axes when you're interacting with people. One is caring personally about the people that you manage or supervise or that are on your team. And the other axis is whether you're challenging directly. So we're going to go through each of the areas of that quadrant and talk about what each of them mean. And then I'd love to hear examples of times when you've seen these behaviors displayed by people you've known or people who have supervised you, or even in your own experience where you've behaved in a certain way. So the one thing, I think one of the common misconceptions about radical candor, though, is that a person resides in a quadrant, and that's not so. Everybody has, growth and fluctuations in their growth when they're supervising or managing people. And so it can be a certain behavior or a certain time period where you're in a certain quadrant or somebody's in a certain quadrant. So you don't want to write somebody off and say, you're only in ruinous empathy or we're not. Okay, so to go through each of these pieces of the quadrant, first we're going to talk about obnoxious aggression. So obviously that's when you're challenging directly, but you really don't care too much. Thank you. Thank you. You're just coming up with backup in case the voice didn't work. Yeah. Yes, I believe so. The recording is starting. So obnoxious aggression is when you challenge, but you don't care. And interestingly enough, Kim Scott says that if you can't have or achieve radical candor, ironically, obnoxious aggression is the second best option. I will disclose fully that I am from New York. So, as a New Yorker, I'm like, I agree with that. No, without, talking too much about New Yorkers. But anyway, but it does open up open and honest conversation. Ideally, if you could care more about the person with whom you're speaking, then the way that it was received would be taken differently. And I'm just going back so you can see, here's manipulative sincerity. That's when you really don't care personally and you're not challenging directly. So this is when you neither care nor challenge. And that's interesting behavior by people who really don't want to be disliked. Have you ever known somebody like that? Their behavior is coming from a place where they want to be liked, but it's not, I want to be liked by Sean because I respect him as a colleague and as a professional. It's, I just want to be prom queen, right? That's manipulatively insincere behavior. The last one, and if we go back, here's ruinous empathy. That's when you care so much that you do not challenge directly. And obviously people can be somewhere on, on these axes within that quadrant. But my favorite anecdote that Kim has to tell is about this Russian folktale that says a man is told he has to cut off his dog's tail. But he loves the dog so much that he cuts the tail off 1 inch at a time.
Death
Right.
by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts. And that's when you say, I care so much. I can't stand to see you hurt. But you're in essence hurting them, doubly. So anyway, that is ruinous empathy, when you care, but you don't challenge. This includes non-specific praise. Great job, great job. Great job for what? Or sugar-coated and unclear criticism. Well, you could have done better. Better at what? How could I have done better? And why are you giving me this criticism? In what context? So that's ruinous empathy, because I know I probably should tell you something. I really don't want to hurt your feelings. You probably could have done better, but I know you tried. Right. So radical candor is when you care and you challenge. So that's where you're getting to know the people that you manage and supervise. You're learning what motivates them, what their goals are, and then you're speaking directly to challenge them in something that they've done or a behavior that's constructive and helps build towards their goals that they care about. So you can see how it's a lot more constructive. So I included some materials that are from Kim's company called candor.com. And We don't have to talk about all of them, but they're a resource for you. There are behaviors, because again, we don't have people residing in quadrants, we have behaviors, but that you can maybe possibly recognize in people whom you've encountered. The absentee manager lacks curiosity, doesn't want to know, says nothing. Detailophobic, unaware of problems, unaware of context. The thought partner, and this is really where it's within the radical candor quadrant, somebody who's really caring and wants to see the person, that team member, grow. And then the micromanager pretends to know it all, gets lost in the details, punishes for problems. Before we go on, there's two, I think what's really interesting about what Kim has to say is she says that earlier in her career, she always rewarded the superstars, right? And we all know who's superstars. You can recognize a superstar. If you're like me, you're like, I am glad to have this person while I have them, right? I know they'll probably move on. They might be my boss someday. And she guards against or warns people against trying to push down the superstar's ambition. The population, the other population that is just as valuable that Kim says that she didn't recognize earlier in her career were the rock stars. And those are people who are steady performers who don't have as much ambition for whatever reason. They are comfortable in what they do, but they're a steady performer and they excel in that specific area. And she says, as a good manager, you should have your balance of rock stars and superstars in your teams and recognize that not everybody wants to continue moving up and out, that they might be your solid performer and a great foundation that your team I would say that your team's built upon, but that is integrated into your team. Okay. So just this morning we had an example. My joke was, I said, does everybody want to come to the Radical Candor? And during our stand-up, our 10-minute staff meeting, and someone joked, I don't. And I said, that's actually obnoxious aggression. It's a good little Radical Candor humor. So I just put these, I think this is from candor.com. It's a great outline of the behaviors that you're trying to encourage. Clear expectations. Not, I want it done now. That's obnoxious aggression. I would like this done, and here's the timeline that I have specifically laid out for you. Do you think that this is doable? Right? Those are clear expectations. Instead of, I want it done now. So anyway, that helps us from going into the obnoxious aggression quadrant. Clear feedback. I like this too because I see this in people when they say things like, well, I don't know, it didn't work for me. Like they're just taking on, well, it's probably not you, it's probably me. That's not helping the person grow. That's not helping them achieve their growth goals. So to give clear feedback, you want to be really specific, or don't say anything at all. But actually, Kim would probably say be obnoxiously aggressive. But clear feedback so that it's specific and that it's something that that person can take and learn from and grow from. And even more specifically, for those of you who read the book too, that if there are ways that you can say, this is the specific feedback I have for you, let's think together on how you can improve on this. Like one of her best stories about feedback was from Sheryl Sandberg. You know, I'm sure not a great boss to have at all. She wrote Lean In, if anybody knows. She was worked at Google and now is at Facebook. And I'm just kidding because she's known as the most amazing boss ever. And anyway, she said that Sheryl, after she gave a speech, came up to her and said, that was a great speech that you gave. And I really liked the way you did X and Y and Z. One of the things you can do, or she said, you said a lot. And Kim said, okay, yeah, not really a big deal. She's a superstar, so she wasn't really thinking it was a big deal. And Cheryl pressed her and said, when you say, it doesn't make you sound as intelligent as I know you are. Let's think about ways in which we can, this isn't a big deal. It's not a make or break thing, but I know that you can do better. So let's think about ways where you can improve on this. I know a great speech coach, etc. And that was very clear feedback. This is something we need to work on, and let's move towards helping you work on it. She has this Get Stuff Done wheel, and I just put it up there. I think this is interesting just because there are similarities. It's just an iterative cycle where you're speaking to people, it encourages debate and feedback, and then you're iterating and presenting it again. And it's a similar cycle in engineering, a similar cycle in design. It's just a cycle of iteration. But everybody thinks it's unique to their own discipline. So anyway, I want to stop talking. Anybody have any questions about the book in general? I listed in the slides a lot of different actual book club questions that Kim's laid out on candor.com. And I thought we could, if anybody had specific questions they wanted to talk about, we could do that. Or we can just go through the slides, and I have certain questions in mind. So jump in and take a Snickers too. I know it's after lunch, but I thought we could just start the discussion portion of it. So to start off, how many people read the book? Anybody? That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You did. What did you think of the book?
I liked the book a lot.
Yeah.
Do you want me to come up with a question?
I was going to say, when you speak, would you mind saying your name and where you're from?
Oh, sure. My name is Lee Dexter. I work at the Career Center. And I think what I enjoyed about the book, to your point, was that she gave a lot of specific examples demonstrating things that we all know happen, but I liked examples. For instance, like, I think it was Colin Firth? No, not Colin Firth. Okay, one of the leaders was asking this question, like, well, at what point can likability be kind of like someone's downfall? When they're not willing to necessarily give out honest feedback or to kind of shake things up a little bit, and things like that. That's what I enjoyed.
Yeah. So does anybody want to describe an experience where you didn't give direct feedback, but you wish you did? Yeah. Okay. I will say this is being recorded, so remove all names, please.
So I had 3 student staff last year who were all basically doing the same job, but they were each available for about 10 hours a week with some overlap. And 2 of them were, one was highly motivated, but maybe felt the job was being superstar student who was like, oh, just updating web content isn't the most thrilling thing ever. So I lost his engagement because he wasn't being, I wasn't challenging him. He would turn something in and I'd be like, oh, that was great. And then not give him specific areas where he could be improving on his skills or learning more about a specific piece of the industry or whatever. So he just sort of fell off and was like, oh, this is too easy for me. I wasn't challenging him with things that he could have improved on. And then a different student had the opposite problem where she was not turning in very good work, but instead of being very specific and giving her direct guidelines about how she could improve or what I expected to be better this next time, I just didn't want to make her feel bad about herself. And I was just like, oh, that was okay. Like maybe you could change a few things here and there, but her quality of work continued to be very low. And so I ended up having to let both of them go because they both were just not engaged in producing better work.
So that's interesting. Kim says with the superstars that the challenging is often overlooked because you're so grateful for the great work that they do, but that superstars are looking to be challenged, and in order for them to grow, they need to be challenged. So that you actually have to spend as much time with the superstars as you do with the needs improvement, which you know, we all tend to spend time with the needs improvement. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It was a very short timeline, so it was within about 6 months, and so it was just like huge, like obvious learning curve for both of those types of personalities.
That's great. Thanks, Katie.
I was going to interject, Kevin Del Mastro from Academic Personnel Services. We've had a few situations where we've really challenged superstars to the point where they're taking on a lot more extra work than we originally planned for that position. When they left, it was so hard to figure out how are we going to restructure the position so it's more manageable for someone who comes in, may not be a superstar, certainly not going to know everything right up front. So I guess it's a good problem to have. But
Actually, I think that's interesting too. So another thing that Kim says is that you challenge superstars, but you are preparing for their departure. So it's interesting too on campus because I've had staff where I say, with other managers, I say, no, I'm just their finishing school, right? I'm just their finishing school. I'm here so that when they move on, they say, wow, that person that came from your unit was really great. But I know that they're not going to stay. It's my job to let's fill in the gaps of what they need. How can they grow while they're with me? But you should definitely be preparing for the backfill because they probably will move on. Yeah. In the university context, I don't know. Does anybody have any comments? Because that is.
I feel like it's so area specific, and it's really a shame. And I think that that's something that, you know, as a university, we could, you know, do better in that area, where it kind of leaves it up to like the managers or the areas, because there are some areas that are amazing with supporting superstars and planning for, you know, mentoring them and growing their skills, and then planning for their positions, and, you know, when they move on. And there's other areas that really stunt the growth of superstars because the entire area is kind of set up to ideally and only get people in and get only rock stars and keep only rock stars. And so then there's superstars that get stunted, or then they leave maybe on bad terms, or maybe they didn't grow as much as they could have, or, you know, there's a host of other, you know, not ideal things that come out of that kind of situation.
Does anybody want to talk about who are the best leaders you've worked for in your career? What made them so exceptional? Anybody work for any great leaders?
Beverly Randez from the Office of the EDC. I used to work in sales and marketing for Fortune magazine, and I had a sales manager that I reported to. I was in marketing, but I reported to her. She was really fantastic at that kind of delivering the radically candid feedback, but also couching it in, here's what you do really well, here's what I observe about you, and then helping everyone to bring their skills up. One of the most effective things she ever did, which I was reminded of when you were speaking a moment ago, was these were salespeople primarily, whose job was to go out and communicate with people. And she brought in a video camera and made us all present and videotape ourselves. It was amazing how much and light and space fillers that you don't even realize. So that was, I think, one of the most effective things she could have done that helped everyone on the team. She's actually now an executive coach, what she does. She's really fantastic. So that was one of the best supervisors I ever had. And she was really good at doing that for everybody, at really honing in on what everyone's strengths and areas of opportunity and learning were, and being able to deliver that kind of feedback in just a very positive and empowering way. I think that's a really important skill that not very many people have.
That's great. Anyone else?
I'll add to that one. Sean Monroe, Jacobs School of Engineering. I think that's a good point. It's not just like giving the radical candor, but having the backup, like here's how we fix it. Because I was thinking of like my favorite supervisor too, and that's exactly how she would do. Here's what you do good. Here's the needs improvement part, but here, let's put a plan in place to actually get that improvement.
Okay, now, did you have?
I was just going to add, I think I hear empowerment. I ordered the book and I haven't read it yet. I apologize. I got the invite.
You're not so logic.
So I'm excited to read about it. I was thinking of a boss who did a really good job when I first graduated college. I'm Kristen Keelik with Operational Strategic Initiatives. I worked at a small private university, and I was a sustainability coordinator. I was young, and I loved that this boss empowered, but also told me a little bit of a roadmap. All right, this is where we need to go. I fully trust that you have it. And there are big challenges, but because I had empowerment, and not that I was set up to fail necessarily, but I was new, and I had the support of a boss who was going to say, oh, let me know if you need me. And just knowing that you have support and empowerment and encouragement, I was willing to stay longer hours. It felt good. I saw the value in it. And I think just a boss who can make you feel valuable and needed and not afraid to make a mistake because your trying something was maybe take on more risk and try. Yeah, it was awesome. So,
and the more risk you take on, I think the more growth you have and a faster, a faster pace, right? Like you don't necessarily think you can do this big project, but when you're given the freedom and the empowerment and encouragement to do so, you do it, you grow leaps and bounds.
That's always had an impact on me whether it's students or anyone I'm working with, is trying to figure out how to be personable and never feel like I can't do that job. That's not, So I thought they did a good job, and that always left a mark with me.
That's great. So now for the good stories, right? Tell a story about the worst boss you had. Remember, it's being recorded. What made them so bad, and how can you avoid those mistakes? Try to stick to what made them so bad, and how can you avoid those mistakes? Yes.
I had a previous boss at a different scientific research institute on Mesa, who was a micromanager, and it was really frustrating because I was supposed to be the program manager, and I was trying to get details about the overall vision and expecting that he would give me a project or a big project, and then I would be working on all the small tasks. And so I was kind of winding up my thing, was trying to do it. And so I get to a certain point and then find out that he was on the phone with catering, arguing about the menu. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But at the time I was so young, and it was such kind of a strange, structure to the program that I had no experience. So I didn't know that was not, I knew it didn't sit right because it felt